Hello, and welcome back to Hedgehog Storytime. This story is a part of the Edie Valley Project. Link to the playlist in the description below. So, this story this week is, yes, Cindy Miller's backstory, finally. I know you were all asking for it last week. So yes, I am going to tell it today. And it's actually a little weird. It's in the form of a monologue. I don't know why I decided to tell it that way, but I kind of felt like I had to, for whatever reason. So, yeah, it's a monologue. Eventually I hope to memorize it and actually do like a live reading of it, but I've just gotten back from moving and I've had no time. So for now, this is just going to be a temporary version of it. So yeah, without further ado, I hope you enjoy. This is Cindy Miller's Daemons, a monologue. You know how in kindergarten, how there's free time and you're playing with the cardboard blocks or whatever, and you can play with whoever you want because everyone's friends? But then, by the start of first grade, everyone already has their groups. They're not called the preps or the dorks or the jocks just yet, but they will be. And it's really not fair to make someone so young choose who they're going to be at such a young age. And they are choosing, because odds are that you will be a part of that group until the end of high school. Probably longer, because these people will change you. No, you will change yourself to please these people. Humans hate change. Humans hate being alone. I didn't want to be alone. If the me from kindergarten met the me from 5th grade, or middle school, or high school, I don't think she would recognize herself. In 5th grade, she begged her mom to buy her a training bra, even though she clearly didn't need it, just because her friends were. In middle school, she laughed at other girls to make herself feel better about the fact that she no longer knew who she was. In high school, she pushed herself past her limit with AP classes and track and student council and friends and parties and boys because that's what all of her friends were doing. She didn't realize that she was killing herself. I didn't realize that I was killing myself. It all ended with chemistry. Doesn't everything? Hopes, dreams, the essential composition of your very being. I had insisted on taking it a year early because, say it with me now, all of my friends were. My counselor strongly advised against it. Math and science had never been my forte, but did I listen? Of course not. Did I ask for help when I struggled? Of course not. Why would I? To ask for help would be to admit my own weakness. So, when the end of second semester drew near, I began panicking. A B-. I had a B-. I had never had a B- before, ever. I was about to bid farewell to my 4.0. The only thing I could think of to do was suck it up and grovel to the teacher. And I did. I went back to his class after school had finished for the day and begged. "You took this class too early," he said. "You didn't ask for help," he said. "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do." I tried everything. Asked to retake quizzes, do extra credit. I'm ashamed to say that I even offered something that no one of my age should have. But there was simply nothing to be done. And in that moment, I saw my future flash before my eyes. Goodbye 4.0, goodbye Harvard, goodbye Brown. In 20 years, I'd be 300 pounds, married to a washed-up loser with 5 kids and working at a gas station. But worst of all, I kept seeing the gloating faces of my friends at the inevitable class reunions, watching them all with their handsome husbands, stylish clothes, and beautiful lives, and me, standing there wondering what would have happened if I hadn't gotten a B- in chemistry. To most people, it might not seem like such a big deal, and looking back on it now, it really wasn't. But to 16-year-old Cynthia Miller, to her, that grade was the world. I don't remember much about my father. My mother finally got away from him when I was 5, but from what I do know, he was a rather violent person. I sometimes wonder how much of that I inherited, because the first thing I thought of to do was to grab the bottle of miscellaneous chemicals just sitting on a vacant lab table and smash it over his head. The bottle, apparently, contained a unique set of substances that shouldn't have been allowed anywhere near a high school classroom. How they got there, I'll probably never know. But in that moment, I wasn't even thinking about anything like that. All I could do was stare, frozen as my chemistry teacher's face melted. Soon, he was nothing more than a heap of blood and tissue lying on the floor. Later, I'd have nightmares about that. and I'd feel so much guilt and grief that I'd just want to die. Right then I was in shock, I guess, and panicking. The only thing I could think was that someone was going to realize that I was the last person who had seen him alive and figure out what I'd done. Forget the gas station. I'd be in jail for the rest of my natural life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go, and I couldn't look away. That was when I met the demon. That's quite a mess you've made there, young lady. He was standing in the doorway, dressed like a janitor, though I had never seen him before in my life. I almost ran. But then he explained that he was apparently a demon named Cowl, and that he wanted to make a deal with me. I can give you the power to make this all go away, to give you that perfect life you've been dreaming of, but I need something in exchange. Like what? I'll give you anything. I want... your subjectivity. My what? Your point of view, the rose-tinted glasses through which you view the world. Fine, sure, whatever, just please help me. I didn't know what that meant. And at the time, I didn't care. I was a fucking idiot. I'm utterly certain about that, because now I can't see it any other way. We sealed the deal, and he handed me a book. Liberis Decepus, the cover read, Book of the Deceived. I think he thought it was ironic. He told me that he would come to collect his end of the bargain when I used the book, and with that, he was just gone, without a word. I ran out the door, away from school, and somehow made it home, the book tucked under my arm. I locked myself in my room and began to read. It was very old, very large, and written by at least a dozen different hands, some in Latin, some in English, some in a language that I didn't even recognize. I also quickly discovered that it was a grimoire, full of spells. And not the kind of stuff you see in Harry Potter, where you wave a wand and cool CGI effects happen. That's all bullshit. Magic is not flashy, and it's certainly not easy. No, this was the old kind of magic, where you have to do a certain thing at a certain time of month when the planets are in the exact right alignment and you have to gather a bunch of insane ingredients and stick them in a pot while chanting, "Hail Satan!" Okay, maybe not that last part, but you get the idea. I stayed up all night, desperately trying to find something that could help me, and eventually I did. And best of all, I could do it in a few hours. But it was very costly. It's not that easy to make the whole world forget that a person ever existed. So, what have we learned today? That you can make a deal with a demon and erase your victim from existence with your newfound unholy powers? But it's not that simple, is it? As I walked to school the next day, I was terrified the spell hadn't worked, or that seeing the lump that had once been my chemistry teacher had driven me temporarily insane and I'd made the whole thing up. But I had nothing to worry about. There were no rumors, no police cars, even the door to his room had become a solid brick wall. I spent most of the first half of the day in a daze, wondering if it had all been just a bad dream. Until lunch, that is. I had just sat down at my very full table, surrounded by friends, when I happened to look over to see a sickeningly familiar janitor waving and smirking at me. I had completely forgotten about my end of the bargain. My subjectivity, he said he wanted. I barely knew the meaning of the word. Taking stock, I didn't feel any different. I shook myself, turned back to my friends, and tried to forget about it. Someone was talking about the new pair of shoes she'd just bought, and everyone was gushing over them, but I had to struggle to pay attention. It was strange. I usually love talking about clothes, and yet at that moment, it suddenly felt so inane and insignificant. Why did the shoes mean so much? She was just going to buy another pair in 3 weeks and forget all about them. And why did she need so many shoes in the first place? 3/4 of them never got worn, and most of the others hurt like hell to walk in. And then I looked around at the other girls, all my friends, and I wondered why we cared so much about what we looked like, what we thought of each other. And I realized that it didn't even matter at all, because we were all so concerned about how we looked that we weren't even paying attention to anyone else. So why did it matter? All around me, I saw the exact same thing, no matter who they were, what group they belonged to. They were all so concerned about what others thought about them that no one was really thinking about anyone else at all. They were all so petty, so shallow. It was like I had spent my whole life with a mask over my face, or a pair of rose-tinted glasses, and it had suddenly been lifted. My mouth dropped open as I understood what Cowell had taken from me. I could see the world as it truly was, and I couldn't turn it off. Distantly, someone was asking if I was feeling all right. "I'm fine." "Are you sure? Do you need to go to the nurse's office?" "No, I'm—" "She can't do that, you idiot. If she went home, then she'd have to miss track." What? No, that's not important." "You must really not be feeling okay. State's like in a week, you know." I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, I couldn't understand why I had thought that track was so important. What had I even liked about it in the first place? "Hey," I asked, "why do we do track again?" The girls blinked at me. "What do you mean, why? Because it's fun?" "But what's so fun about it? 'Cause it sure as hell ain't the running. Can you honestly tell me that you like being sore all the time?" "Not really, but all of our friends do it." "Friends? I don't even like any of you." It was another realization, but to me it was clear as day. Just a fact. None of these girls and I really had anything in common. Some part of me had always found them petty and annoying, so why had I put up with them? The table gasped, but I kept going. "So what is it then? Why track? If it's not the running, is it the winning then? But that's just a plaque with your name on it that no one gives a shit about. Is it the personal accomplishment? Maybe for some people, but all we do is complain about it. So what is it then?" "It looks good on a college application?" I should have shut up then. Should have laughed it all off like it was a big joke. But I couldn't. My mouth kept moving, and I was powerless to stop it. "Oh, of course, college. That's what I'm killing myself for, isn't it? And that's why I'm taking 3 AP classes, heading student council, and running track, all so that I look good on paper, like I've had a well-rounded education, so that I can get into the best college, so that I can get a boring job that I don't like and have some kids with a man I've simply settled for because being alone is hard, and then die in 80 years. I stood up from the table. I felt sick. What's the point? What's the fucking point? Can anyone tell me? Or are you all just too busy staring at the next carrot dangling in front of your noses to notice? The next step to fucking death? We're all just bits of meat and bones that think for a little while and then die! Ashes in the fucking breeze! That's all there is, isn't there? There's no point to any of this. There's no... Why are you all staring at me? Do I really think all of these things? I did at the time. I saw things as they really were in that cafeteria and assumed that the rest of the world was just the same. But after the police liaison dragged me away and pretty much forcibly locked me in a psych ward for 2 months, I had a lot of time to think. And I saw a lot of things there. By the time I'd gotten good enough at lying, at appearing normal for them to let me out, I didn't believe that everything was meaningless anymore. See, it's not that life is meaningless. It's that most people settle for a life that doesn't make them happy. Not truly happy, just enough. And that makes it meaningless. Look at me talking. I know I'm a hypocrite. I haven't done much of anything in the past year. But I think that, for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to become happy. I'm starting to find the me from kindergarten that I lost so many years ago. The person that I really am. And now that I've been the lowest of the low, things can only get better from here, right?